In this video, we're going to be looking at the Toshiba Libretto 20CT. Released in 1996, this is the very first Toshiba Libretto model, with the entire line ending in 2010. It was followed by the 30CT, which just got a slight spec bump. So the 20CT came with an AMD 46DX4 CPU, 75 MHz, with the 30CT getting 100 MHz. It came with 8 MB of RAM built in, expandable to 20 MB via proprietary 8 MB or 12 MB smart card style expansion. It is a 6.1 inch 640 by 480 TFT screen. For storage, it came with a 270 MB 44 pin 2.5 inch ID hard drive, with the 30CT getting a 500 MB drive. The ports are pretty limited. You only get a PC card slot and an IR port. The dock is also more limited, only giving you a serial port and a printer port. The next models would give you PS2 ports, VGA out, even USB ports. Here's a look at the RAM card, memory upgrade. So you may notice when checking the ports, there's no headphone or microphone jack on here. It has a speaker grill, but basically the 20 and 30CT don't have a built-in sound card. So all you get is a standard PC beep speaker. This does limit them a lot as a retro DOS gaming machine. It was starting with the 50CT that they moved to a Pentium, and then they added the Yamaha OPL3, which is pretty much a standard for DOS gaming. I think my favorite of these first generation Librettos would be the 70CT. It's the last model before they went to more of a widescreen aspect ratio. So let's begin the disassembly, starting with the battery. You can see this Libretto already has a memory upgrade, bringing it from its base 8 MB to 16 MB. It's being held in by a little pull strap. This is an official Toshiba 8 MB card, but I also picked up a 12 MB aftermarket card, although it's missing its little strap for removal. Now this first Libretto still has a hard drive you can get to fairly easily just by removing 2 screws and then sliding out the drive. Fortunately, as you'll see, I was unable to find a caddy that would fit into here, which you'll need if you want to remove the drive without doing more disassembly. This is something I'd hoped to avoid because these first generation Librettos are notorious for having extremely brittle plastic. Most that you'll see for sale already have some damage, and if you do have to do any kind of serious disassembly, pretty likely that you can have things crack and break. Fortunately, this one's no exception. So now with the cover off, you can slide out the little handle, screw to the side of the drive, and pull the drive out of the machine. I'm going to want to remove the old CMOS battery to make sure it's not leaking and going to do any damage. To do that, we need to remove the keyboard. There's a plastic strip across the top with some clips, similar to later Libretto models. You can see 2 little slots on each side. You just kind of carefully pry. And you can see our first casualty here, a little clip on the back of the trim piece is broken off. We have a single screw in the center of the keyboard holding it in. And then we can carefully tip the keyboard forward, noting that it's still connected through a ribbon cable. We can release this just by pushing on the 2 tabs on either side towards the back of the laptop. So with the battery removed, checking for damage, I can see a little bit of green corrosion on one of the pins. It had traveled its way down the wire into the connector, but it looks like it only affected the pins and didn't really do anything to the boards yet. So now a quick cleanup of that connector, starting out with some white vinegar, using a swab and then a nylon brush, then using some isopropyl alcohol, and finally using some CRC electrical contact cleaner. So now to prepare our compact flash SSD solution using some Transcend 4GB industrial compact flash, and a 44-pin IDE adapter, trimming off the extra long jumper pins, poking out the bottom. So checking out what I had for caddies, first I had this Toshiba dual compact flash adapter, but it was too thick compared to the original hard drive, so it wouldn't fit. So next I tried two 3D printed compact flash caddies. Now I tried both of these and the height looked good. I transferred over the handle, but something was just slightly off. And no matter how I tried to wiggle it around, it just wouldn't plug into the laptop. It's hard to tell, but I think vertically the IDE connector is slightly off. Since the drive is such a tight fit into the bay, I just can't account for that. So since I wasn't able to get an adapter to work, we're going to instead need to install the compact flash directly into the notebook, which means we're going to have to take off the bottom and risk those brittle plastics. And here we have our second casualty. There's a little clip here, just barely put any pressure on it, and it snapped off. I'll glue it back in, but luckily you don't really notice this too much when the battery's in. You can see all the little flecks of plastic that are chipping off here. And here I'm just doing a quick follow-up test now that we have this open, just to try to see why the drive isn't connecting. It does seem like it's slightly too high. So now we're just going to plug the compact flash adapter directly into the port. Fortunately, this means we can no longer easily remove it once it's all reassembled. Putting on a little double-sided tape here just to make sure it doesn't short, and there's a bit of a spacer. Now to start the reassembly, putting the back cover on, making sure that the PC card eject lever matches up with the slider on the case. Now time to reinstall the keyboard, starting with this metal plate. Now this does seem to be a bit of a heatsink for the CPU. There's a little pad that sits over it. Let's take a quick tour of the Libretto CT20, starting out by looking at the BIOS, which is even more basic than later Libretto models with just a single page of options. So let's take a look at Windows. I installed Windows 95 on this, which is what it would have come with from the factory. I didn't see any kind of recovery media anywhere. This is just a standard English Windows 95 installation. Now the original hard drive did work. It seemed pretty basic. It did have Office installed on it. I didn't see any custom wallpaper, so I took some wallpaper from a later Libretto model. It did have a backup of the utilities floppy, which I'll put on archive.org. You install it through Add Remove Programs, Windows Setup. It's kind of hard to tell what these all do since they're all in Japanese, and you can't really get Japanese fonts on Windows 95 unless you install the Japanese version. Here's the help file, which is somewhat readable. And since there's not much else to show here, I'll briefly fire up Wolfenstein 3D, which runs really well on this 46, but without any kind of sound card, the PC Beep speaker isn't great. But that's it. Thanks for watching.